Okay, so it was suggested to me to do a commentary on the Prometheist Manifesto. So this one's going to be like way shorter than that reading was. And for those that didn't see that, it's that one that I accidentally streamed on Wednesday instead of like recorded. So you can check out that last one. I think it should be on the page there. It won't show up with the uploads though. It'll be under the streams. But from the get-go, it does seem kind of strange where when it comes off the way it is, they kind of explain a lot of things that it's like, okay, this is kind of weird. As I was reading it, it's okay, I can see that. But once they get further into it, I can see where they're like, okay, I kind of can see better what's going on, and it's something that I can more get behind. They've refuted a couple things like Marxism and the like, and those totalitarian systems. And they're like, our system relies on freedom of choice and that agency that people have. So that's kind of the main principle that really I would rather focus on when it comes to these kinds of things is, like it also mentioned in there, they would rather not go through it in a violent way. And at the same end, they would rather preserve the agency and freedom that people have. The problem is the way that people are. People are not perfect, and they noted that in how people range. And if you're looking for the ideal person, you're probably looking at less than 1%. And that less than 1% are those people that have the idea and belief in other people that they can still attain their best. Is there a way that we could get to that point? I believe there is. It comes down to not trying to change the circumstances. They note that too. It's not about changing the person's outside, which these totalitarian systems would do. They enforce order upon people from the outside, and basically anyone that resists their enforcement of order ends up getting ousted from society, and those that conform are the ones that stay around. So you have those people that basically stick to it just because they don't want to die, but they would be doing whatever otherwise. Whereas this system relies on teaching, in essence, teaching the individual and changing him from the inside. And then from there, he would change the outside around him. There's an old saying, well, I mean, it's mostly come up in Latter-day Saint General Conferences a couple different times, is that whereas people would take people out of the slums, Jesus takes the slums out of people, and then the person takes himself out of the slum. And that's really where the Promethiest Manifesto relies on, is basically taking the slum out of the person, and then they will pull themselves out of their situation. Which, when you look at the world around us currently, and what the media is pushing, and social media, and a wide swath of people that are much louder than a lot of other people, the loudest portion of people are seeking to try and pull people out of the slums. And when you do that, you don't really solve their problem. You just give them a different kind of set of problems. It's like if you were to take a child and just plop them into the world. They've not learned how to deal with the world and how to interact with the world and get along with the world and survive in the world. So they would not fare well in those circumstances. You think of the animal kingdom, how the parent animal takes care of her offspring and teaches the offspring how to survive, and the offspring learn how to survive so that when they get kicked out or are sent out alone, then they are able to fend for themselves without needing to rely on someone else. And that's another thing that I've noticed about when is reading through it, is that it relies on self-reliance. The Prometheus rely on that idea of self-reliance because that is basically the only way that you're going to get people to be able to trust each other that way, have a full trust situation, is this person can rely on himself, but if there's something that he's lacking, I know that maybe there's something that he has that I need that he can give me, that I can give him what he needs. So, while at the same time being self-reliant, you're not directly providing for every material need that you have, but you have a way to provide for that material need and help others provide for their material needs at the same time. It's the way many of our societies have worked. And that compensation of labor is kind of that offset to even a lack of knowledge. And they talk about that advancement of technology and how there may be a certain point where it relies on the human ingenuity in order to move forward. We can't hold back technology just because it would decrease all these other jobs or whatever. It's like going through the industrial era. When we industrialized much of the world, we found a way to adapt to those changes. When new technologies came out, we found a way to adapt and change our economy to fit that. It's not necessarily that we have to give everyone a universal basic income. I really don't think that's necessary. We just have to have the ingenuity and creativity in order to find a new field to create in order to provide people with fulfilling work and work that will help them provide their necessities. And they exactly note that moving forward, if we allow technology to progress, there will be those people that will create those new areas because they've got that creativity, that drive to move forward. I feel bad for those people that can't see past the losing jobs, and it's like, well, we need universal basic income because people are going to lose their jobs and all this automation and stuff. And it's like, what it comes down to is you've got to find the people that are innovating and have the drive to improve society and make it better. And those people will honestly earn their way into the positions that they are because they created that area and provided a way for other people to be able to provide for themselves through their work. And you've got to find those new ways of work. You can't exactly force it, though. You have to let technology naturally improve, per se. Like, you can look at all the dirty energy fields, and there have been various efficiencies that have been made to make it cleaner, make it more efficient, because the less material that they have to spend on, the more money that they can make on that. So if you can pump more energy out of coal because you are actually recycling or burning more of that material back into itself, then you have less waste and there's less pollution as well. So when you look at the old coal power plants and the spring cleaning and where that came from, and the need that people had to clean their homes from all the soot over the winter because of all the coal burning that was going on. And now that process has been made much cleaner and is more efficient. So either A, you could reduce the cost of power, or B, the companies can make more and hire more people to do some more of those jobs. You've got some people that are holding back on other technologies because of the fear factor. It's like the fear factor of the train. It's like, well, the train's going to be lethal, or airplanes are going to be lethal because it'll go too fast and people's insides are going to like go inside out. But come to find out, that's not what ended up happening. And is there merit to some things and like some of the dangers of technology? Yeah. Do we see like the cancers and things from like people overly using their tech? Yeah, we can argue with that. But is that a reason to stop the progress of technology, or is there a way that we can make that technology better so that it doesn't have as much harm? And that's where some of that innovation comes in. They also bring up it was also brought up with the innovation of technology, there's also been this innovation in spying on the people and the importance of privacy. And whereas much of the big technology companies have been going into that, you see these smaller startups and these smaller groups of people that are creating technology that is geared around privacy. You take a look at the Librem 5 smartphone with the hardware switches on the side, and even the Pine phone with the hardware switches on the inside, so that you can actually physically turn off the microphone, the camera, and the things like that, so that you don't have that feedback happening, and there's less likely to be that spying. You've got the privacy-oriented versions of Android that remove de-Google a lot of that stuff, and you've got the efforts to de-Google various products and remove the spying technology in various products that have telemetry and things like that. And that's where that innovation comes in, is these people are creating technology that more and more is becoming popular because many people don't want to be spied on. And it's obviously become a viable market because there are people that run their businesses off of that model. If you look at Rob Braxman, he basically sells phones, VPN service, and so on that's privacy oriented. You've also got people starting up their own email servers or going to Proton Mail. So there's a market for this kind of technology. It just hasn't quite penetrated into the normie field yet, and that's the issue. And so I can see the Prometheus. Privacy is a legitimate issue because there are other ways to still spy on people, but at the same time, there's technology now coming out and people are innovating that could very well become mainstream. So, I mean, do many people see the Linux smartphone becoming mainstream anytime soon? Not really. But is it becoming very usable? Yes. Is it more private? Yes. And and I think that comes down to part of the innovation because people are starting to look for that stuff. And when they talk about the post-human era, they're really, I think that's an inaccurate term for it. You could consider it almost post-human, I guess, because many laborious things are taken over by technology, but there's a merit to understanding that humanity is what drives that forward, and that there are so many things that only humans can do still that robots really can't do. You can't really get a robot to put the same emotion behind a message like you can a person. There are certain things, like certain traits that people have that robots just don't have. A robot is not going to be near as empathetic as a human. There's still fields where people are needed. If you want someone that really understands the human experience, then you need another human. for someone that does counseling or psychology, a psychologist that are helping people and counseling people, it really does come down to needing a human. I mean, there's sure certain patterns that you can add in, but really when you're trying to really get down to the nitty gritty of it, there's certain creativity in linking things that only humans can do. Neural networks can do certain things to an extent, but sometimes it takes the ingenuity of a human in order to really have that creative spark or inspiration in order to really solve that problem. And that's really where I think the Prometheists are coming from in this manifesto, is let technology progress, but humanity is so, really when put to the bar, humanity can come through it. We don't need to have these two separate societies. We don't have to limit population numbers in order to help the world. We just need to be creative about the way we do things. I mean, there really isn't a need, because we've found innovations in food to stop. We found innovations in food in order to provide food for other people. I mean, you stop the process of the growing of food and things in certain countries, in other countries are going to starve because of it. Just like they noted with Africa. Much of Africa relies on other countries in order to provide them food. And if those countries aren't there, or those populations are fighting each other and don't have enough food themselves, then that becomes an issue, and then those people starve. And a lot of people are like, well, I want to help people, but then it's like they forget about those people because it inconveniences them. And that seems to be a common line with all these issues laid out, is really what it comes down to is the Prometheists aren't looking at it from the side point of only what conveniences me, but trying to look at it in an overall light. Whereas you've got all these people that are trying to play the moral argument that are really just looking at it in a convenience factor for themselves, it seems. Because if you bring a fact up that like, well, this happens in this country over here, they could care less because it doesn't inconvenience them. What inconveniences them is what's right in front of their face, which at the same time makes sense. But sometimes those things that inconvenience you are your own creations of specters and omens yourselves that just kind of hang there, and really is turning a molehill into a mountain, whereas there are actual mountains that could be taken down over yonder, but we're so focused over here. But I think that's really the point that they're going with here, is believe in humanity. Because I believe that we can really, if we do it right, we don't need these measures that many people want to take. If we can teach people correct principles and let them govern themselves, and they will figure it out. Whereas so many people now just want to say, like, we just have to lock this down, we have to do this, that, and the other, and legislate perfection into people. And we haven't really given the chance to really try and help people understand how these principles will help them. And how them changing their character will change their situation, rather than trying to change their situation and hope that they become better. Because you can give people an extra $1,000 a month, but if you don't change their thinking, their character, and you don't change their character, their living, and their mindset, then all that's going to happen is they're just going to go back to where they were, and you've never really solved the problem. Just because you give them an extra $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month doesn't mean they won't waste it again. Because if they're addicted to, like, say, drugs, then they'll probably end up spending it on that too. You haven't helped them solve their problem. You haven't gotten to the root of the problem. And from what I understand from the manifesto, that's what the Prometheus are trying to get at, is getting to the root of the problem rather than trying to put a band-aid on everything. And every government measure for like the last 100 years, for the most part, has been just band-aid on top of band-aid on top of band-aid. And we have to solve the problem rather than putting a band-aid on it in order for it to truly heal. So, anyway, yeah, people are going to hate me for this. Oh, but that's okay. Check out the Discord and that kind of thing. I do have a Guilded. I think I added that to the links down below. Support links and stuff are also in the description, so check those out, and it would really help me a lot to get out of a trashy IRS job. Well, I mean, it's kind of cushy. It's got good benefits, but I really don't like it because it doesn't let me focus on the things I really want to focus on. But yeah, leave all that good subscribe and likey stuff if you want. Leave a comment, tell me why I'm wrong, and I will see you all later.